The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be joining you. We were not here yesterday. I apologize completely. I was under the weather. I am here today and thrilled to be back with you. And Wednesday is a great day to start out our live week because, you know, on Wednesday we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She's here with us for Ask Dr. Doreen. And then in our second hour, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've got a wonderful guest who's a semi-regular here on the show. Susan Campbell Cross is going to be with us in the next hour, and she's got some wonderful Valentine's Day hacks for those of us who are parents of kids on the autism spectrum. Some really clever, cute ideas for ways that we can find a couple of minutes for romance and for intimacy and being together and celebrating this holiday of love that's coming up, even while you've got all the things going on. Susan's always so good to give us tips for things that make sense. It just makes you look at things in a different way. So she's going to be with us in the next hour. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be here as well. In fact, she's going to be joining us a little bit early today at some point during Ask Dr. Doreen, and we look forward to that. She's got a specific question for Dr. Granpeesheh that I think that we're all going to be able to relate to. But before we get into all of that, I want to take a minute to remind all of you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. That's really the point of this show, is that we want to hear from you. We want to interact with you to know what's on your mind, what questions you have. So Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us, ways that you can watch the show, ways that you can write in and have your voice be heard on the show. While he's doing that, I'll remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, so many things to do, so many things to check out. Please make sure that you sign up to be on our email list. Kelby's doing a wonderful job of getting out the monthly newsletter, but also a weekly, I would call it a lineup of who's going to be on the show, what times they're going to be there, so that you never miss a guest that's important. And I want to remind all of you that at some point soon we expect to have an interview coming up with Temple Grandin. We never know when that's going to happen until there's a hole in Temple's schedule. And then we'd love to be able to notify you, hey, we're going to be on the air live with Temple in an hour. That's what happened the last time. We had less than an hour's notice. And the people on our email list get to know what's happening. So please sign up for that. It's free. We don't inundate you with anything, and we don't sell your information, of course. But I also want to remind you to use the live feature that's on autism-live.com. It's totally free as well. We don't know who you are from that. So if you want to give us specific information about you, I won't share it with anyone, and we will appreciate any way that if you want to give us a way to get back to you, we're happy to have that. And as I said, we won't share that. And the easiest thing in the world to do is to put your cursor in that box that says your question, start typing, hit enter. That's all there is. There's no login, there's no username, there's no credit card, there's nothing. Instant gratification. It comes right here onto my screen. All right, without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen, and welcome to Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Thank you. It's
So
lovely to
thrilled
be
to have
here.
you. You look very Valentine-y today. That's a great color for you.
I know, it's funny because a lot of times when I'm doing the show, I think in the morning I should wear something colorful, you know, and then I end up wearing this dress, which is so hard to wear and so
Oh, but it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you very
It goes right with the season. And we welcome you here. For those of you who are joining the show and maybe haven't been here before, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. She's been working in this field for multiple decades.
Thank you very much.
And
yes.
we appreciate you and everything that you do. And I always like to remind everyone, including you, you're a visionary in this field. You see things
Thank you
coming.
very much.
You see what we all need, everybody on this spectrum, whether it's a parent, whether it's a practitioner. You have such a loving hand and such a love for everyone in this field. You're a gift to us.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon. I really love our kids, our families. I feel so blessed to have entered this field before it became chaos and craziness. You know, like when I entered this field, nobody really knew what it wasn't even a word that people knew.
Yeah.
So it was just, you know, it was 1 in 15,000 children. Let's put it that way. I mean, like there were people, my classmates at UCLA saying like, why are you specializing in something so like
So narrow.
narrow, you know? And it drew me for whatever reason. And I feel so blessed to be part of that society, part of that group of people, because I think I think it's more than just, you know, a disorder. I think it's something that's changing the way we live, and it's changing everything about humanity, quite honestly. The rapid increase in autism and just how we're dealing with it is very interesting. And also what's coming of it.
Yes.
You know, like our kids will change the world. They're much more savvy at technology. They're much more talented in certain areas. They're going to change the world. So it's sort of fun being part of it.
Well, and I appreciate that you see that as something that is multifaceted and in some
absolutely.
ways a gift.
Yeah, I know. I mean, because it's good and bad, right? Because like from the perspective of a parent who lives it every single day, it's hard to see it as something positive, obviously, because it's so difficult, and it's difficult raising one typical child, you know, much less having children who have special needs. But having said that, I don't know, I feel like the kids are just so spectacular, and we're figuring out more and more every day how to, how to allow society to benefit from their strengths.
Yes.
You know?
And I just want to say, as a parent who has gone through the process and had my child treated by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders,
Right.
which, you know, you founded, I know that having that vision from you from the top down helped me through those days when it felt really hard and insurmountable, that you were seeing something in my child, and that everybody who worked with my child was seeing something in him that I couldn't in that moment helped
Right,
me. So
right.
thank you for that.
Well, it's first of all our pleasure, but you also have a ridiculously awesome child.
I do. I will not argue with you on that.
Let's
I will
point
not
that
argue.
out as well. He's
spectacular.
charming. He's charming. He's got one of those
Yes.
personalities that's unavoidable to love. You know, you have to love him.
I'm not going to argue with you there.
It's a lot of you in him too. It's a lot of
and
you
my
in him.
fabulous husband. I
And your
always start
fabulous
most
husband.
conversations by saying I'm incredibly lucky.
Yeah,
There are people who look at me and go, how could you say that? I've seen some of the things that you've been through, and I go, yeah, but I'm incredibly lucky because I have 2 men at home that are pretty spectacular.
That's
and
right.
I didn't know that I was going to get that at any point.
so true.
I count myself as lucky. But you know what? Before we get too far into how
Sure.
lucky I am, because I could wax poetic on that, I want to start to get to some questions.
Of course.
Okay, so hi Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My son will be 5 in June, and he's considered high functioning. He has lots of language. He talks in 4 to 5 and sometimes 6 to 7 word sentences to request, and when he's trying to tell us something. He's not conversational, but will ask questions like, what are you eating? Where are we going? Barely uses who and why. He's potty trained and is smart. He knows all his letters, most colors, and numbers up to 12. His understanding is pretty good too. Now my question is, how can someone be considered high functioning yet his social and language skills still be so impaired? He's social, tested as 34 to 40 months age. I was heartbroken. I know his social is impaired, but did not know that it was that much. He's social with his brother, his father and I, and his aunt, but sometimes can be inappropriate. What are your thoughts? Would you still consider him high functioning, even though language and social being this impaired? I'm really happy he has language, though, and can communicate, and thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, and I love to listen to this family because, yes, you have a... So, first of all, yes, you have a very high-functioning child. Let's just put it that way. And high-functioning doesn't necessarily have to do with the skills that they come with. It has to do with their capability to learn, not with what they have already learned. Because what they have already learned is a function of what has been presented to them. So, you know, if the right stuff hasn't been presented in the right way, our children will just learn from what's around them. It's just like any other child, right? Any typical child. If you have them go to piano lessons 5 times a week, they're going to be a virtuoso in playing the piano. And if you don't, they won't. It's really that simple. So your child sounds like he's extremely capable because he's only about to turn 5. He's not even 5, which is wonderful, by the way. Perfect age. And he already has 6 to 7 word sentences. Yes, he's not using things like who and why, but he is actually asking some social questions, some investigative questions. He's curious. All he needs is the correct techniques for intervention and the correct content. This is very important. So you have a child who has the possibility to actually recover. What you need to do is you need to teach him a massive amount of stuff focused in the areas of language and social skills. And you have to do it in the right order, and you have to do it using the right techniques because he will learn very quickly, and you want to watch for things like boredom and just, you want to make sure that everything is well integrated. When you learn something and you learn something else, that the two kind of merge and don't conflict. So that the order and the technique is very important. And the content is the most important. You know, if I don't expect your child to pick these things up from his environment. There was a period of time in his early development where he wasn't learning from his environment, and even if he has achieved, even if he's got to the point where he's learning very, very rapidly from his normal environment, he's not going to catch up. In fact, he's going to fall behind. So you need to just think of it as very intensive tutoring. And the way that I would do it, and this is why I'm so happy that for years now I'm able to say this to parents, is that you are the type of parent that I made skills for. This is the reason I made skills, because the whole thing about our skills program and website was that there were children like this out there, and it was impossible for me to reach them and say, hey, here's the next 200 things I need you to learn, and then to have people out there who can actually teach the child. So skills and IBT together were exactly because of this child. So this is what you have to do, and I don't know where you are, but you need to get a team of people together who can provide therapy to your child, who can actually teach your child. And let me just say, 40 hours. Do not go below, because you have a lot of stuff to teach. And this is the type of child I get really passionate about, because he has a really good chance. So please do it right. Don't think that 5 hours of ABA is going to work. It's not. It's not going to be enough. So get out there, find a team of 4 or 5 people. If you are in a state where there's insurance coverage, then please contact CARD. Contact us. If you have insurance coverage, we will take care of you. What we do is we'll come out and we will hire people in your area, and we will train them, and we will oversee them. And so you'll have our full program, and you won't have to do any of this. But if you don't have access to us, assume you're someplace and you want to do this yourself, you hire 4 or 5 students out of high school who are just finished with high school or going to an undergrad program. And you make sure that they can put together a schedule of the whole time that your child is free. So, you know, he's 4.5. He doesn't need that much school. He's probably going into kindergarten, I assume, next year, and this year he's probably still in preschool. So reduce the hours in school, because right now you're going to need to do one-on-one tutoring. and have those people that you hire go through the Institute for Behavioral Training, IBT, and have them go through the therapist training portion, and just have them train, have them learn how to do therapy. When you do that, then you go into Skills, which is a different website, Skills for Autism. You go into that website and you answer a bunch of questions about your child, lots of questions. And once you've answered those questions, it will generate a profile for your child. It'll tell you kind of a list of everything he still needs to learn. Now, particularly when you become a member of Skills, you'll see the craziness of this website, and you'll see all the programs in the social area and the language area, and that's really all you need. Those are the two main areas that you need, but there's a lot of other stuff that you'll need to work on as well, and you'll see them. There's 8 domains, and social and language are just 2 of the 8. So, and Skills will give you everything he needs to learn, and how to, exactly the content and exactly the order and what you need to do next. So it'll tell your staff, your team, how to teach your child social behavior and language that's necessary. I mean, something like using who and why. There's lessons that's called WH questions that will include how to teach all of the who and why questions. So then he'll do that. Then after that, we'll teach other things and very, very advanced things, so that by the time he's 7 or 8, he's functioning typically, and he's asking questions, telling jokes, playing, interacting, socializing, everything. Now, the highest level lessons, so when you're talking about advanced social skills, are pretty hard for someone who's not trained in the field, are pretty hard to just keep track of. There's a lot of detail involved to everything I said. So your first choice would be to try to get a supervisor who's board certified, who's a BCBA or licensed, and have an experienced individual oversee this program for you. But whatever you do, whether you come to CARD or you do it on your own or you go to another professional, use Skills, because I can guarantee you that there's no other place where you will get that level of detail in those high level areas that you want to teach your child. I promise you that. No other program exists that will give you hundreds of lessons to teach your child how to tell jokes or how to lie or all these advanced conversation things. Skills does that, and so it's there for you, and these are some ways that you can use it. But don't worry, don't be discouraged. You're very, very blessed. Your child's very young and very high functioning, and will do well with the right intervention.
And I just want to say to you as a parent, take a breath and get excited, because something that somebody said to me many years ago was, if somebody could guarantee you that if you worked as hard as you possibly could for the next 2 years, that all the things that you want would be there, how hard would you work?
Yes.
And that's really what's in front of you now.
Yes.
Is that for the next 2 years, you've got a lot of work to do.
That's right.
But that the progress is there for your child, all of the hallmarks of your child being able to do that. But it's going to take some hard work. So circle your wagons, take a breath, and get excited.
That's right. That's such a lovely way to put it, too. I mean, if you know for sure that the reinforcer is there, it just requires a lot of work. And with a child like this, the reinforcer is going to be there. You just have to put in a lot of time.
Yeah, but it's worth it. I guarantee you it's worth it. It's all of our kids are worth that time and that energy and that excitement. Okay, shall we take a short break and come back? All right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with a question that somebody wrote in this morning that they're less than happy. So so we'll have that right when we come back. Stick with us.
Looking for some cheap festive napkins for your next party with your kids? Look no further. We're going to be making some hand-dyed paper napkins. While we make this fun activity, you'll notice that these icons will pop up. These icons lay important information about the skill and where to find it on the Skills program. Skills is an ABA-based online tool that helps parents create curriculum to help teach their children on the autism spectrum. And if you're already a Skills user, this will ensure that you get the most out of this fun activity with your child. Well, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are paper towels, food coloring, water, a bowl, and rubber bands. Step 1, you're going to take your paper towel and you're going to fold it symmetrically into a shape. This is a chance to be creative to see how repeating patterns are going to be made. Once your paper towels have been folded into different types of shapes and patterns, you're going to take your rubber band and you're going to use that to secure it in place. These are my folded up napkins. Now that they're ready, I'm going to take my water and mix it up with the food coloring and submerge the napkins in it. Once they've been submerged with the food coloring, I'm going to take it out and lay it flat to dry. If you leave it in the water too long, they're going to completely disintegrate, so just leave them in for just a moment. I've been very patient, and here is my finished pattern napkin. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with me today. Until next time, guys, craft on. Bye!
To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parent icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled that this segment is called Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here, and I apologize. I always start by reminding everybody that no one on this show can give individual specific advice. And you know, because I'm a little left of center today, I forgot to mention that at the start, but I want to mention it now. That as much of an expert as Dr. Granpeesheh is, she can't give individual specific advice, but she gives such wonderful insights into the choices that we can make, that it's wonderful to have her here. So I want to move on now to a question that came in this morning. Someone wrote in and said, as much as I admire and love you both and love and respect my therapist, I really dislike the way your office runs its schedules. It does not make sense to have a therapist driving all around the city. It's not feasible for them or your company. They should be assigned 3 cases. That way they are fully attentive to their clients. Your therapists are spending half their day on the road when they can be utilizing their time in actual therapy. I fight every contract to get my kids the maximum hours, but then the office tells me that they can't fulfill his hours. But I just realized that it's not because of the therapist, because they're not getting their hours, but because of new clients you are bringing on. They are only giving these kids 15 hours to start and reducing ours. That's not fair for both parties. Keep either on the waiting list until you get more staff, but don't shorten our kids the therapy they need. Not fair. And I want to thank you for writing in, and I want to thank you because when I said to you, we have a question about this, you said, oh, please, I want to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I always want to answer those types of questions because I think that there's only 2 things that can happen with questions like this. Either I learn something or the person learns something. And if I learn something, or both. If I learn something, then it's great because we can change the system and make it better.
Yeah.
And if they learn something, then it'll reduce their stress.
Yeah.
So here's where we are with regards to therapists. I completely agree with you. I wish that we could avoid the whole driving thing altogether. So first of all, think of this. The first way that we could avoid driving is center-based.
Yes.
Right? Center-based is a fantastic solution because it just as this parent said, if you drop your child off at the center, you will have back-to-back therapy. What happens, which is good for the child, and what happens for the therapist is they go to the center and they work 2 hours with your child, 3 hours with another, 2 hours with yours, and so on and so forth, and there's no gaps in their schedules whatsoever, and it's not wasted. What happens for the company is also great. We don't have to pay travel time and mileage, which is a huge cost for us. I mean, people sometimes don't realize that our travel time and mileage cost goes over $2 million a year. Like, it's a huge cost. So, center-based is the best, and the only reason that it has not increased is because it's inconvenient for parents. That's very simply said. Every parent prefers to have this in their home. When we did therapy, and let me just go back and say when we did therapy at UCLA in the very beginning, guess what? Most of it was at the center. It wasn't all at home. People think that the therapy has to be at home. No, it just has to generalize to the home. So some of it could still be in the home, but a lot of it could also occur in the center, and it's still one-to-one. So we really encourage parents, first of all, to try to do that. Second thing is, I agree with you. We have this thing called zoning. Zoning allows us to have all therapists zoned to a specific region, so they never leave that region. And we keep the regions pretty small, so a standard office would have 7 zones or even 8 zones, where it's like, you know, within the 10 miles or 15 miles north of this area is just these therapists, and these therapists will only work on the east side of this and so on. So we zone all of our offices simply for the purpose of reducing drive time. So that's the second thing that we do. The third thing is that therapists generally are only on 3 cases, just so you know, unless it's a full-time therapist, which is very few and far because most of our therapists are only 20 hours, 25 hours a week. So that's about 3 cases. So they don't get tons and tons of cases. If a therapist is telling you that, that's not true. And their cases remain the same, by the way, for the duration of the schedule. So and we only do schedule changes twice a year, and in some locations 3 times a year. And that's simply because of the therapist schedule changes, because the majority of our therapists are also in school, they're in college. So we change with their semester change. Or we change June because our kids' schedules change for the summer. But generally speaking, they're tied to the same cases unless they request off or the family requests a change. So that's the other thing. The therapist should not be pulled from your case or reduced from your case in order to start a new case. That shouldn't really be happening. Although I will tell you that it's very, very hard to say no to new families who've been waiting also for a year. So recruitment, so we have a whole department called recruitment, and it's a very active department. So this is how our recruitment works. We have 2 key people at headquarters who are in charge of just therapist recruitment. Those people then deal with a therapist liaison in each location. So there's a therapist liaison in each of our sites, and that person is the person that does sort of the live interviews and also the initial training for the therapists. We're up to about 1,500 now. We bring in therapists all the time. I get weekly reports of therapists hiring. It is unbelievable how fast we are hiring. The problem is we spend a lot of time training our folks because we can't really take someone off, just out of school and place them in your home. So we do spend a lot of time.
Would you want that?
Yeah, you should want that. But and also I have to say that like one of the big things for us is just safety, I suppose. And we fingerprint our people. We wait for clearances. Clearances sometimes take time because we don't want to send someone to your house who's had a bad history or criminal history. And we also, in some locations, in some states, we're mandated to gain a certificate or a license of approval for that person before we put them out there. In Louisiana, every single therapist is licensed. And licensure takes somewhere like 3 months, 4 months sometimes. Now, it's very hard to hire someone and then have them wait for 3 or 4 months. So it's a very difficult situation. The other thing is, in addition to hiring, in addition to licensure and credentialing, we have to get them in network with your carrier. Some carriers require us to put every single person's name through, which, you'd be shocked. But like, for instance, there's this one carrier right now that's taking somewhere like 4 months to license my people or to approve my people or put them in network, which is just ridiculous. So that means a lot of people are waiting. And that's why the new therapist can't be used. So a new therapist might come into the system, but there's all this bureaucracy that prevents us from using that new therapists across the board. So then, there's families that are waiting, and I know it's hard for existing families to understand this, but we have families in our Virginia location, for instance, we have 50 people on the wait list, and they're waiting for over a year, and it's dangerous. We're almost past the window of opportunity for some of these kids, or in some of these other cases, it's just a child who has really significant needs. I have a child right now who's extremely self-injurious. I have to get someone in there. Yeah. And as fast as I hire a therapist, Generally the rule here, by the way, is do not take therapists off existing cases. Never. The number one metric that I look at every week, not only I look at, but our managing director looks at and all the operations staff looks at, is what we call contract fulfillment. Contract fulfillment means what percentage of your contract, your child's funding, are we fulfilling? So the number one thing that all offices, all administrative staff get reprimanded for is if they don't fulfill your contract completely. So both supervision and therapy, we are very, very much tracking that and trying very, very hard to fulfill that. Now, I honestly wish that there was a way that we could reduce further the time of driving, because it is time consuming, but it is so much better than it used to be because of the zoning and because of the fact that the schedules are really packed pretty solid now. And because of technology. Technology has helped us. But the good news is, Shannon, that we are, I think, very soon about to pilot a new scheduling software that has just come out. And we've built our own our IT team has built some portions of this as well, and it's pretty spectacular, actually. So what it does is it matches characteristics of the child and the therapist, which we put in. These are our characteristics. So for instance, we've said, therapists must have training in this, this, and this.
Right.
Therapist must be male or female. Therapist must be in this particular zip code or region, and must have X amount of years of experience. So like how many people are senior, how many are junior, and so on, and must be able to work these hours. And then some of our children have special needs, like for even more special needs, like nonverbal child. Right. So therapists must also be trained to do nonverbal programs, or aggressive child. So preferably we want a larger therapist or a male therapist, that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
And the system gives you all possible options.
So you've got like an algorithm to match them. Great.
And not only that, but the system will, at any given time, if a cancellation occurs, I didn't mention another big thing is the cancellations, right? Of course, a child might get sick, so a parent will cancel. Sometimes some of our families cancel for reasons that are not that valid, but still, they cancel. So that therapist now has a block of time open, which we would like to pay them for. So we want to reroute them to another family, and that's a difficult process.
Right.
And the opposite occurs, where a therapist will cancel, and these are young folks, right? And who knows why they cancel? They cancel because they want to go to the ball game, whatever.
Right.
Sometimes. And so when that happens, we want to track another therapist down and place them in that session for a makeup. So, and this system helps you do that. It helps you find the closest therapist with the similar credentials. Yeah. So, we're working very hard. Scheduling is our biggest nightmare.
Yeah.
No question. It always has been.
On both sides.
Absolutely. But I have to tell you, when I started this company, I used to have my 10 therapists and my 20 families schedules on the wall in my office, and at night I'd be trying to patch them together. We're in a much better place now.
Yeah. I will say too, as a parent who's been through this, there were times when I could have written that email at one point.
Absolutely.
But now that I have seen both sides of it, I have an understanding of what the logistical nightmare of it is. But I want to leave you with something positive. And you brought up a couple of things that you can do to empower yourself to make it better, because we all have the ability to make this equation exponentially better.
Absolutely.
So if you have the ability to take your child in for those center-based hours, that's the number one thing that you can do, and that will eliminate that part of that problem for you. But I also want to say to anybody who is watching, whether you're a card family or other, they're always recruiting therapists.
Oh,
and
yes.
If you know good young people, I know once when I showed up at Sienna Green or Wooten's desk and I was like, I want to understand why I can't have this therapist at this time, because we have it in our contract contract. And she was like, how about if you go find me a therapist that's going to be good? And I did. I went and I went to all my friends and said, who has, really wonderful young people that you don't want to have working at Taco Bell, that have something higher in mind for their lives, that want to do something, and found a wonderful therapist and brought her to Sienna and said, I have done my part.
Excellent.
And you can too. And if each family did that,
Oh yes, for sure. I mean,
we
there's
find really good quality people.
no question about it. I mean, it's my family and friends always make fun of me because wherever we go, like, right? So we're sitting at a restaurant and a waiter or a waitress turns out to be just really sharp and just someone who gets it and has a great memory and is like taking care of everyone. I'm like, what do do you want another job, and how much do you get here? And
that's how you found Peter Farrig.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I recruit people all the time.
Yes.
And if you can do that to help us, that would be spectacular.
That makes a difference for
huge,
everyone, not just for you, but it makes a difference for the families coming in. And I want you to know, if you think for a second that the people at CARD aren't constantly worried and tweaking and trying to make this better, I want to tell you,
we are.
They are. And if you think that there aren't people who are lying awake worrying about those people who are on the waiting list, I want you to know that I see them. They are. It's
very, very difficult. It's a balancing act. We don't ever want to reduce the quality or hours of your child's program in order to help other children. We do find it our own responsibility to hire and train other therapists for the children. But having said that, I think the biggest issue with this is just scheduling and driving. I mean, it is unavoidable that therapist is only going to be on 3 children or 4 maybe maximum, but it still involves a lot of driving. And as Shannon said, please, if you can, even if it's for 1 session a week, take your child into the center. That is the best thing you can do for us.
Okay, and they had a follow-up, and they said they're
you.
having to leave. She says, I can't stay online, but we'll listen later. But why don't all CARD offices offer the services we get emails about, such as Shadows at Summer Camp or the Holiday Inn Center activity days, CARD Safari, etc.? It's very sad to see all these great things are out there, but not for us, and thank you. And I want you to know that there's things coming to each
There's
place.
additional things coming which are really great, but they should be at every office. So if they're not, you need to write into Shannon, please, and tell me who told you these things are not offered at your location. I don't know which location you're at, but all of these things are offered at every location.
And we had someone else write in and say, OMG, so true about recruitment. I have been lucky to personally recruit every one of my son's therapists. Such a huge stress reliever. Recruit, recruit, recruit. It is.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So absolutely love that. But good things are in the pipeline, and double check at your office to see what's available in your office.
And please let me know if there is a program that we write about that isn't offered at your office, and either I'll let you know it's coming. We roll things out 1 location at a time or 2 locations at a time. But CARD Safari, for instance, should be everywhere.
Okay.
So a lot of these programs are everywhere. So please let me know. I would love to follow up on that. And sometimes the people at the offices get overwhelmed, and then they're not offering something at a particular time, and we don't know about it.
Okay. So make sure that you be in contact. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with more of Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to another Talk of Fact. We bring you the most common questions and share those answers that help your journey along for you and your family. One of the most common questions we hear all the time is, why are these doctors working with kids on the autism spectrum so expensive? Well, there's a simple answer. Kids with autism take more time, and unfortunately, if you look at a regular pediatrician's practice, they may see anywhere from 30 to 60 patients every day. So you may get at most 3 to 5 minutes with those doctors. With doctors that specialize in autism, they're called MAPS doctors, the Medical Academy of Pediatric Special Needs. They spend quite more time with each family and each patient. And that could be an hour to an hour and a half for each family that is actually being spent just talking about your child, looking at labs. So why are they more expensive? Well, your pediatrician probably gets paid a lot more per hour based on the number of people they see. A MedMaps doctor is solely dedicated to what you're doing and what your child needs. So look at it this way. If you're spending time with your MedMaps doc and you're working with that doc, and you will literally on average see somewhere between 4 to 7 hours per year. And then don't forget that other fact we talked about, how to get the best possible health care reimbursement, so you can make sure that that time is well spent, not only getting answers, but also reimbursed by health insurance. So there, another very detailed long fact from Talk of Facts.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she's answering your questions in real time. And I'm not getting to them fast enough, but I want to take this next one. I noticed the other day during an ABA session, as the therapist prompted my son for eye contact, that I was actually the one not giving him eye contact. I started to pay more attention to my own eye contact, and it turns out I have pretty poor eye contact myself. Then I thought to myself, how am I supposed to teach my son to have good eye contact if I have an issue with it myself? And she says, thoughts, suggestions.
You know, I just love people who learn from every scenario. I try to be that person. Just ask yourself, I guess, why you're avoiding eye contact, and try to increase it to a point that you're just push your comfort level a little bit every day. Eye contact is really kind of an important thing. It gives the individual that you're speaking with some sense of acknowledgement that you are connected to them. And that's very, very important for many different reasons, whether you're expressing something or receiving some information. So I would just say, and you know, there are adults who are uncomfortable with eye contact. It sometimes has to do with having been raised in an environment full of anxiety. So you're sort of afraid of what will happen if you connect to another individual. But, and sometimes it has many other reasons. So, you know, please do, if it's comfortable for you, just try to push the limit a little bit and increase, you know, we do eye contact with shaping, right? So first we generate eye contact so the individual, the child understands what we expect. And then we just increase the duration of holding contact. And don't do it to a point where it's ridiculous, you know. Even now where I'm speaking with Shannon, for instance, I will switch back and forth. Eye contact is kind of transitory, it's not stable, but it is a very important feature.
And I don't know if this is inappropriate for me to say too, but you know, check your vitamin levels and things. That I know that I went through a period of time where I wasn't taking a probiotic and wasn't taking a B supplement, and that I was dizzy a lot.
Interesting.
And my doctor I was noticing that I was having a hard time looking at something, which sometimes manifested in eye contact. But anyway, and it was when Jen was going through autism, and the doctor said something to me about it and said, you know, you're not making a lot of eye contact. And I thought, that's weird because I'm capable of it.
Interesting.
But I went on a really good probiotic and a really good vitamin B, and that made a tremendous difference.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I noticed that if my son doesn't take his probiotic, that we have a slippage in that too, and that when he takes his methyl B12 shots, we have better eye contact.
Yeah, I've heard that before as well. I've heard about the methyl B12 having a huge effect.
Yeah, so, you know, think of that for yourself. And I don't think any of us can be harmed by being on a really good probiotic in this day and age. I think it's a really good thing for everything.
Absolutely.
And see if that's something that will help, as well as working at increasing it. We have a very special guest who's going to join us a little bit early today, and she has a question that goes hand in hand with a question that we had come in on our live feature. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to bring Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson into the studio. So stick with us for more of Ask Dr. Doreen.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. Act Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
We're ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. And this is unusual circumstances. We don't usually have Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson during this segment.
I weaseled my way in.
Well, I invited her to come in.
Selfish purpose.
I love having you on this show.
All right, well,
it's so much more fun.
Selfishly, I get more time with the two of you, and I get to ask Doreen questions that
It's awesome.
I'm going to tell on you a little bit too, because I've been under the weather and we didn't do a show yesterday, and Nancy had, graciously offered to come in and do the whole show today without me, which was really nice. I rallied my bones and came in anyway.
I knew you would.
But she said she had a question that she wanted to ask, and when I heard what it was, I said, boy, there's a lot of us that can relate to this, especially it'd be nice to keep peace the week before Valentine's Day. So go ahead and ask your question so we can all bask in the answer.
Okay. I'll try to make it succinct, but Doreen, in my household sometimes my husband will start dealing with Wyatt with a behavior, and I'll be in the next room and I'll hear the escalation that might occur as a result of that. And I'm going to tell you what the situation was. This morning, he makes his eggs, and he's gotten very independent. He sprays the pan, he puts the eggs in, he scrambles them, and everything.
You should come and teach my kids.
He does that, and he loves to put Daya gluten-free, casein-free cheese into his egg. Now, what my husband's been noticing is he dumps like half the package of Daya in there, right? So Reed said, Wyatt, no, I'm going to do it. And Wyatt has been used to doing this himself. So he starts to get upset. And Reed said, no, I'm going to do it. I'm putting the cheese in. You use too much. And then Wyatt starts to have a complete meltdown. And then Reed says, you know what? You're just not getting the cheese anymore. So I hear all this, and then he just walks out of the room and lets Wyatt use the cheese anyway. And I say to Reed, can you come here for a minute? And I said, maybe it would be better to use this as there's a middle ground here, that you might have said, you have to use less cheese. Let's measure how much. Let's get him a little small measuring cup of how much cheese he can use. But now you've laid down the gauntlet. You said no more cheese, yet he's in there using the cheese. So how...
What do we do? What do we do?
What do we do now?
What do we do in the moment, and what do we do to prevent this happening
Because
again?
tomorrow he's going to say...
Well, I'm going to take you back to the basics. Okay, because the answer is always in the basics here. And before I start, I want to tell Reed how much I love him.
Yes, we all love
We all
Reed.
love you. But this is, it's really the basics, right? How do you want to change your behavior? Right. What are the two things you change in order to change the behavior?
Antecedent and consequence.
There you go. Right. Okay. So what Reed did this morning is he did a correct consequence, but he didn't change the antecedent. What you told him to do was to change the antecedent.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that. It is important that when you give some sort of instruction that you follow through all the way. So he was correct in that he followed through, and that he was harsh about it. He said he put down the line and he stuck with it. You need to stick with it. You cannot give in once, even if you've made a mistake.
No, but he let him get the cheese.
Okay, well, you can't. You need to, when you say no more cheese or I'm going to do it, you need to follow up with what you just said. Now, but the error in the whole thing is exactly what you said. Wyatt isn't understanding why today I can't do it. We often forget that the antecedent in changing behavior for our kids is explaining the why in a way that they understand. He doesn't understand. He doesn't get it. He enjoys doing that whole thing.
Of course he does.
So why do I not get to do it? What did I do wrong? Right. And that frustration escalates, and he's freaking out, and he has every right to freak out. So what do? You fix that portion, the antecedent portion, and the way to fix it is really very simple. You take that, is it shredded cheese?
Yeah.
Yes.
You take when it comes in from the supermarket, you put it in 10 little Ziploc bags. That's it, you're done. Every morning he will take a Ziploc and he will use that, and nobody has to worry about it. You modify antecedents. Don't forget that you will modify antecedents. We do that for ourselves, right? In order for me to remember to take all my vitamins, I put them in a little container.
Right.
Why do I do that? I do it because if I don't do it, I won't see them. I won't remember which ones I have to take, what time I have to take, and so on.
Right.
So that's all you're doing for him.
Okay.
That's it.
Did you see
modify stuff?
The look that went back and forth between the two of us, because it's that thing, because we get so caught up in the emotion and so caught up in the thing, and like for you to say, oh, it's as simple as putting it in 10 little baggies, and both of us are like, oh, duh.
But you are correct. See, you experienced the same frustration that I experienced when you remember, Shannon, I always tell you I love my teenagers. Part of the reason I love the teenagers is because when I generally enter the world of a teenager, they're already in such a bad place. Like, people have gotten to a point where they're never explaining anything to them, and they're so mad because no one has ever told them why. No one has ever made things clear to them. I swear to God, none of our guys would ever be aggressive if they understood the whys. The reason they get frustrated is because they don't get it. They don't know why this was just taken away from me. Why am I being put in timeout? Why am I this? Why do I have to rush? Why can't I have my food when I want it? Why? They don't get any of that. No one ever makes it explained in a way they get it. Okay. And for Wyatt, it's not even necessary for him to understand, like, let's say, it is too much cheese, therefore it's too unhealthy for you, and whatever. It's not necessary. Just put packages. That's it.
Okay. Now, on the other side of this, because this happens a lot too, that you've got something set up with your child, you feel like you've conveyed it to your spouse, and then there is that moment that it escalates, and the spouse lays down the gauntlet and says, "There's no cheese."
Well, we will always have slightly different points of view.
Right.
I think this type of thing is good to do, and if you anytime if you have a disagreement, these are the things you're supposed to discuss with your supervisor anyway, and just say which one is right, how do we deal with it, and they should say this is the way to go with it. And definitely when a child, so let's assume, let's also answer the other side, let's assume a poor decision is made, either you or Reed. Somebody does something wrong, and now the child is escalating.
Right.
What do you do?
Okay.
What you do is really simple. You don't want to give in, but you also don't want to escalate to a point where the child has the biggest tantrum of his life.
That was what was beginning to happen.
Right.
Today.
So what do? You guys should both know this. What do? You simplify the task. But you reward it somehow.
Do you go in and stop the other parent, though? Because I'm always worried about making it so that he doesn't have the authority if I go in and fix it.
Yeah.
So do you let them stay doing it, or do you go in and intercede?
I mean, that's a difficult situation because, like, on the one hand, you have very different children.
Yes.
In their case, for instance, if something really incredibly wrong is occurring and you have a better solution, then you should go ahead and probably intervene, because it's not going to, Wyatt's never going to think she has more authority than he does.
Okay.
He's pretty much going to, he's going to still remain respectful to both and so on.
Right.
Jim, on the other hand, is too high functioning in terms of he will start thinking that if you win every time, right?
So it's very
it has to do with the child very much, but it also has to do with, what I do in my household is I'll probably, and we never have disagreements about the kids really, we sometimes have disagreements about other things in the house, but what I'll do is I will wait and discuss it later and then agree either way.
Right.
If you haven't had the time to come to an agreement, if the issue hasn't risen, if you can let it go, it's probably best to let it go that one time and then discuss it and come up with a plan before you intervene. But sometimes as a mother, it's so hard because you see your child escalating and you're like, okay, we need to stop. And I would say, there are ways you can stop a situation without making the other parent look bad. Right? There are ways in which you could just step in and say, let me help.
Right.
Let me help. And always, the first thing to ask yourself is, can I increase the prompt level or the modeling so that the child's successful, so that I can increase the reward?
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Ever. Even if your child knows exactly how to do a procedure, they're never going to unlearn it by you prompting them more one day.
Okay.
So if he's freaking out for whatever reason and you go in and you're like, come on, let's do it. Wyatt, you do it. Let's pour excellence. Just maneuver him through it like you used to in the beginning.
Right.
And reward, and the situation is done.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I know that by then Reed's probably angry and he himself is kind of ready for a fight, right? I mean, sometimes...
No, he just said I did it wrong again. And I'm like, no, don't go into that victim thing. You didn't do it wrong. You were just dealing with it with the best you could. And he goes, you're absolutely right, though. I didn't think about teaching him to put it in a cup. He said, I didn't think about that.
But he did think about trying to consecrate it and trying to follow up with the consequence. We're like, no, we're not going to do this. And he took it away. That is kind of the right thing to do as well in terms of you just disrespected the rule, so I have to consecrate.
But then Wyatt got the cheese back and ended up making it, so he kind of got his way.
Right.
So tomorrow, he will have
piece.
the baggie, and I will say, this is the correct amount of cheese.
Who cares? Just label them. Just leave it there.
Here's your cheese.
Here's your
Okay.
cheese.
Okay.
And what I want to congratulate you on is that together you have all the components.
Yes.
This is why you're so good together. Together you have all the components. You just got to put it in the right order at the right time.
And I have to say, it's hard for the dads. It's so hard for the dads because they do have, no matter what, they do, we're the people we're the captains of this ship when it comes to our kids, right? We're always the captain, in most cases, not always, most cases. And there's a level of enjoyment that goes with that for us and for them, like not having to run the ship, right? Not having to run all the decisions. There's a level of enjoyment, and for us as well, having things our way.
Right.
And sometimes that changes, right? And sometimes
it's changed in my household.
Yeah,
the
of course.
dynamic is he's taking over more of it, and I think you are going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
Well, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. But along with that goes, you both have to discuss things and have a mutual plan, because you can't be the only one in charge.
Right.
And for dads,
like you said, that's where our supervisors come in, and that's where our team comes in to give us a plan.
Absolutely. And dads often feel, I might as well avoid it because I'm going to screw it up.
Right.
And you don't want that to happen, because you really want them to stay with it and stay involved and get it going.
Yeah.
And they play such an important role.
They do. I have learned that I have a way that I think it's supposed to be, and I'm 100% sure that it's the right way, right, in my head, and that I have to let go of that expectation on a minute-by-minute basis and talk to myself about it and go, just because it's not the way I would have done it doesn't mean it's wrong, and that even though it's not done the way I want it, I have to let go of that expectation that it will be my way if I can't be there to do it.
Yeah. I have to tell you, I think the number one reason that we have these conflicts, male and female, is because females tend to have a lot more theory of mind, and males don't. It's just that way.
Yes.
So when we see our kids, the first thing is, oh my God, how is he feeling? How's Wyatt experiencing this?
Right.
What is he seeing? You jump into his skin
independence being
immediately.
taken away.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? You jump immediately into his shell, and you're like, how is he seeing this? Right? And men don't think that way. They're like, he did something wrong, I gotta punish it.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean?
It's
very
discipline.
different.
Learn to listen to your
very
father. And I'm
different.
thinking, well, he just had a major.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Thing taken away that he was proud of, his independence, making his cheese omelet in the morning. He didn't see it the same way.
Yeah. And that theory of mind, your ability to see your child's vision, his perspective, is what makes you as a mom always protect him, defend him, want to see, you see the world from his eyes.
Right.
And so there's always going to be somewhat of that, but I think we all kind of can get better also at seeing the world better from our spouse's eyes.
Right. And I know we're running out of time, but I had one other thing that I wanted to run by you, and that is we're dealing with trying to fade out or lessen Wyatt's ritualistic behaviors.
Yes, he's got a lot of them, yes.
A lot of them. And if he doesn't get those things right on time, and if we change it at all, if Daddy doesn't take him to Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf on Saturday morning, there's a tantrum. If he doesn't get his last soy milk decaf coffee in the morning before walking out the door, it doesn't matter if it's going to make us run late, he's got to have it. And when I say, well, that's going to make you late for school, you can choose that, but you'll be late to school. He hates being late to school. Then it goes into, I don't want a choice. I don't want a choice. I want both. I want both.
Oh, God, that's so amazing. That's just so amazing. It's such a, it is such a clear, it's just such a great example of life, And that's the situation for everyone, right? I don't want a choice either in a million things, but you got to do them all.
Right. But when you have a child that has a lot of these rituals,
he's got a lot.
How do you cut those rituals out?
Yeah, I think first thing is list them. Okay, put them all on a list. The very first thing, because you might have some on that list that are the easiest to change.
Right.
So those are the ones that are, let's say that he's. A, maybe more willing to give up, or B, are just really easy things to fade away.
Okay.
You can put them on a shaping schedule and they'll fade off. Okay. So and then the more important thing about the list is you put the list together and you cross off whatever you think you can work on first, work on those and get rid of them. Okay. And then you kind of have him help you put them in order of importance. Right? Some are going to be more important to him and others are going to be less important. One thing you can do is you can change the time of when they occur. So for instance, with Wyatt, so the whole thing about routine is that it gives you a sense of control. Okay, and that's the key to it. It helps you control what happens in your environment, therefore you feel safer. And that is the whole thing about OCD behaviors, obsessive compulsive behaviors. So let's say his latte in the morning or whatever it is, would he agree to have his latte but have it in the car? Or would he agree that he will get his latte when he comes back from school? Or would he, in other words, don't remove the entire thing, but change its time during the day so that his schedule works better? I mean, what you did is fantastic in terms of which do you prefer, but he could also maybe make a choice if he knew which one do you want to do first. Like if you do school now, you can still get the latte after school. Or if you do school now, you can have it in the car, perhaps.
Okay.
And you know, quite
but if
honestly,
they're screaming, I don't want a choice. I want both.
Yeah, you kind of have to approach it before they get to the screaming stage.
Okay.
And that's why I'm saying it's not like I often say to Shannon. We try to deal with things when it gets to the screaming stage, whereas what we should do is make it a lesson that we work on it when it's calm. So this is an issue for Wyatt.
Yes.
So when you go home, before there's any sort of tantrum, make the list.
Right.
You know what I mean? And say, tomorrow, if this should happen, let's talk about this. Like days when you have to choose, which one do you want to do? How about if we have it after school? How about if you have it in the car? These are some choices that, these are better choices. And that's really all you can do. I mean, you know, I often tell people, pick your battles with this OCD behavior. And by the way, they have a function, these behaviors. They make the individual feel less anxious.
Of course.
That's their function.
My order makes me feel less anxious.
Absolutely. So does he know how to deal with anxiety? In other words, let's assume he has a situation where he can't have those things.
Right.
Is he going to go into panic, which it sounds like he does? And does he have a way to bring himself down from panic?
Okay.
So often, and if he's freaking out, so then another thing you want to have talk to the supervisor and make sure your staff teach him is just the breathing exercises. I think Wyatt knew how to do that
Yes,
before.
he does.
He just doesn't, we don't practice it all the time.
Right,
He should. It should become part of his life where I'm going there. Okay, come on. To, you know, take him back, teach him that self-regulation. That's like the most helpful thing.
Right.
You know? It's tough. It is very tough. Our kids have more of those needs than typical kids.
They do.
But he continues to make progress.
Yes,
and
he does.
As do we all.
Does, yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
It was a pleasure, and
Yeah,
thank you
thank
for
you.
visiting us.
Thank you for answering some very important
Enjoy
questions.
your show.
We're going to take a break now and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. We get to have a window into his family, his growing family, to see how they're coping with the changes that are happening in Jack Riley. And then when we come back, it'll be time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Our very special guest that's with us today is Susan Campbell Cross. She's a lifestyle expert, and she's going to be helping us with hacks for Valentine's Day. For those of us who are special needs parents, how do we combat all the things that we've got going on to find a moment or two to have some romance, some celebration, and maybe some intimacy? I don't know. She says she's going to help us, and we need it, don't we?
We do need it.
All right, but first, here is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Exciting.
I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Come inside, please. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Come
on, dude. There's a lot of toys in here.
I said Paolo's not coming over today.
Thank you.
I didn't like to see Paolo today, and I didn't like him.
Yeah, don't attend that. Let's go. Let's go find some toys.
I'm sad I didn't like Paolo.
Let's go. Jack Riley, go play.
What? Paolo's come over today.
He's just so argumentative about everything. You know, Paolo's not coming today. I said, Paolo's going to be there. Paolo's not coming.
Redirected to ask me, is Paulo coming today?
Okay.
Yes, Paulo's coming today. End of discussion. Then redirected to something else. Like how we redirected him into playing instead of perseverating on the fact that everyone's here and he doesn't want whoever to come over.
In the last week, he's he's wet himself several times. It's like he's sliding back a little bit. He's either lost interest in it or control. I don't know.
So if he hasn't gone within 2.5 to 3 hours, you guys need to remind him. Remind him of the reinforcer to initiate. Do you guys have a reinforcer set?
Yeah, it's different every time.
It's
right
different
now
every
we've been working on stickers for Lego City.
How many stickers do I need to get to Lego City?
I think you need 20. Do you know how many you have right now?
If you don't know, you can ask Dad. You say, Dad, how many stickers do I have left?
Dad, how many stickers do I have
You have 17, so you only have 3 left.
Ooh, you only need 3.
That's 20 minus 17 is 3.
Cool.
17 is 3?
Okay.
Whoa.
So 3 times today, if you say, I have to go pee-pee, and you go pee-pee, then you're going to get Lego City today. So to remind him about the reinforcement system that's in place. So he knows right away what he's earning. Because if it takes him a while to remember, then it means it's probably not worth it enough to him.
Okay, I hear you.
You guys alluded to my graphs on parental thing, like what I'm strong at, what I'm not. Just tell me what I'm weak at. I can take it.
We can make you a cheat sheet.
All right.
I'll tell you right now. So non-compliance, as far as following through with non-compliance, what's happening?
No, like when Mike gives an instruction and he doesn't comply, Mike does follow through. I think maybe, because sometimes it's like the spur of the moment, maybe sometimes you might need to do a preference assessment of what he wants.
Well, let me tell you what happened last week. I got to a point where he's sitting down, and I picked the smallest thing to get a sticker for. I said, stand up and you can have a sticker for Lego City, which has been a big deal. He wouldn't stand up. I just ran out of ideas.
So what did you do? What did you do and stand up?
What's that? I tried to pick him up from
Good.
his
Yes.
and sit right down. He did the lifeless body thing.
And then what happened?
Well, I kept picking him up and he kept sitting down, and he kicked my ass. I lost.
I would say that would be your number 1 thing to work on.
Okay.
Is it does not matter how much he tests you, he is going to stand up.
And you know, it's. I'm sure you guys could have gotten him through it. One tough thing after another, and whatever skills I have go out the window. That's the part that's pissing me off.
Well, and I think he knows that too. I
Okay.
think he knows that he's majorly pushing a button with you.
Okay.
And it's one that he does have control over.
Yeah.
Because like you will sit with
Pisses
him.
me off.
after
The
all
4-year-old's kicking.
No, it's just you have a very strong history of that happening, and so it's going to be extra hard for you to work through it.
Right.
But you can. You just have to really stick with it.
Okay.
Paula, I.
Oh, waiting.
You gotta say it better.
You gotta say it better.
How I need to go.
Better, dude.
Jack Riley, you are not going to get a sticker if you're silly about it. You have to say, Paulo, I have to go potty. And if you don't say it, then you don't get a sticker and you're still going to have to go potty.
Try again, dude.
I have to go potty.
Thank
All right,
you.
good job, bud.
Okay, go potty.
Wow.
Give me, show, so it's right here. Contrives. How do you feel? I don't know. Should I open it?
Bye-bye.
Hey, Jack. I got a nice warm seat for you right here, dude.
It's a time
We're
to
going to
go
put the
yet.
first date it was run, which was 6:14.
But it was time to go.
Introduce.
Seat, bud.
But it's time for me to go.
Jack, have a
Time
seat.
for me to go.
Try again, bud. Have a seat.
Game over. Oh,
What does the door have?
This is torture. He threw a tantrum in there, and I was glad to be sent out of the room. Regression might be a strong word, but he's not in school anymore, so I think he's sort of slid back a little bit. Whatever school did for him, I think he's missing it, maybe. Sort of depressing when you feel like you should be better at handling his tantrums and picking him out, and really I don't know that I'm helping a great deal right now.
Daddy is waiting for you to be all done. It is time for you to go home. You are not leaving until you get all of your tokens. You need to answer nicely.
I'm calling Daddy. I need to
Oh, try again, dude. What does a bear have on its skin?
I feel like I'm sort of back at square one. I'm reacting emotionally as opposed to the skills I'm learning. It's just you start doubting yourself, and then once you start doubting yourself, I think you don't react as you should when he's having a problem.
Hey, Jack. What does your refrigerator have?
It has handle.
Good, dude. Look, you're so fast, dude.
I'm
Jack,
so
Jack,
sad.
tell me what a cabinet has.
It has a handle.
Good, dude. Jack, tell me what a bird has.
It has a feather.
Yeah, it has feathers, dude. Alright, last one, dude. Tell me what a zebra has.
It has stripes.
Up top, dude. All done.
He's fine. He's not a grudge holder. I mean, but I wanted him to hug everybody because it was a tough session. So.
Oh my goodness, did you? I'll see you at school tomorrow.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism. That was fun sitting here with you and Dr. Doreen and having her answer some of my questions.
Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to get our questions answered. I want to remind everybody that you all have the opportunity to do that by writing in.
Right.
And I do want to say that somebody wrote in right at the end of the show, we were answering a question with Dr. Granpeesheh about the amount of time that therapists spend in cars, and somebody wrote in, she said, try to do the center-based. She wrote in and said, I did try at center, but it didn't work. And she asked specifically if you would write in and tell us, where you are so that we can figure out specifically, because my question was, how can it not work at center-based systems? She said she wants more information about where you are, which office you're at, so that she can be useful and helpful.
Great.
But thrilled to have you here, madam. Thank you for being willing to be here. Thank you for, Nancy was ready to do the entire show all by herself today.
But you're feeling a little better.
I do feel a little bit better. I still feel a little left of center, but I think a lot of people do. There's just a lot of stuff going on.
I certainly had a flu for about 2 weeks, and then it turned into a cold, and it's still not gone.
Yeah, well, so we're all reminding each other to take care of ourselves and take it easy and be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
But we've got a great show planned for everybody here today. Wonderful guest that's going to be joining us in the next segment.
Yes, Susan Campbell Cross, who's going to talk to us about creating more time for romance and togetherness. Valentine's Day is coming up, which I don't know if most of you, I haven't even given it a thought. So, we'll kind of tackle that subject because
I've given it thought, but I think about things a lot and sometimes don't ever get to action.
Exactly.
So I'm hoping that she's gonna, because it gets overwhelming to me.
It does.
It's like, well, I can't do what I want to do. I'd love to give my husband a vacation and take him away for a weekend, and that's not happening.
Yeah, I want to go to Hawaii.
Nothing.
Right.
Right? And that's terrible. So hopefully she's going to give us some realistic ideas of things that we were calling it autism parents and special needs parents Valentine's Day hacks.
Okay, good.
So that we can figure out how to do this.
Good.
But before that, we've got some really interesting updates, stories in the news. This first one, I guess I'm turning into a science geek. I just love things that are weird and strange. It was a big headline yesterday in the news amidst a bunch of other things, which we'll get to. But this is called the Illusion Hand Study. And this is folks at the Cognition and Philosophy Lab at Monash University and the Cognitive Neuroscience Unit at Deakin University and the Monash Alfred Psychiatry Research Center. They did research called the Illusion Hand. So they put people in a circumstance, neurotypical and folks who are on the spectrum, both who had a lot of issues on the autism spectrum and that didn't have a lot of issues, and set them up in a circumstance. They take a rubber hand, they stick it on the table where your hand would be. Your other hand is underneath the table. They are visually touching the hand in front of you while someone is touching your hand under the table, and the whole thing is to trick your brain into thinking that the hand that's being touched, the rubber hand, is your hand, to see if your brain will visually decide that it's the same thing. And what they do afterwards is, after they've done this for a few minutes, they take away the rubber hand and then ask you to do something with your actual hand, and people have difficulty doing it because they're visualizing moving the other hand.
Okay.
It's very fascinating. And what they found is that folks who are not on the spectrum are very easily tricked into thinking that the hand that's there, the illusion hand, is their hand.
See, I would think it would be the opposite. I don't know why.
If you're neurotypical, you can be tricked easily. If you have only, it was in direct correlation to how many aspects of autism, how easily you could be tricked. So if you only have some aspects of autism that aren't that disabling, then you could easily be tricked. But for folks who have more issues on the autism spectrum, it was harder to trick them. So they're looking at how the brain perceives things and saying this is definitely a component of autism that we want to look further into.
How the brain perceives things.
Yes, well, and we know that there is a part of the brain called the mirror neurons.
Yes.
And that when you and I are watching the Olympics, they've done studies on this. When you're watching the person who's doing the slalom, I've never done slalom skiing, but if we're watching it, the part of our brain that's called the mirror neurons will light up. It's the same part of your brain that you would use if you were actually doing it. There's a part of our brain that experiences it even though we're not doing it. And for folks on the autism spectrum, they have a much harder time getting the mirror neurons to light up. It's one of the reasons why so many years ago when we had all the technology like the Wii.
Well, Wyatt loves Wii.
Right, and it's good for our kids because it lights up the mirror neurons because they're watching that avatar.
Yeah.
It helps to light up. It involves they're using their body, watching it, and it helps to build up those mirror neurons.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the reasons why
he's a Wii fanatic, and our Wii just broke, so I got to get a new one.
Okay.
Do they still make
or get
them?
it fixed. Yes.
Okay.
Now they have the Wii U, which is the next. We'll talk about that because that teaches perspective taking.
Oh, fabulous. Okay. This is really. I do think it's. I wonder how they came up with this, the hand thing. And all that.
Know,
That's how I wonder how the
fascinating
scientists.
how they decided to come up with that.
And I'm a science geek too because I was featured in a story last week here
you
on.
Were lovely.
Well,
by
thank
the way.
you on CBS News and CBS and KCAL, CBS 2, and the medical producer, Jerry Constant, came out to my home to interview and take footage of me and Wyatt. And it was tying into a discovery at Caltech here in California by a Dr. Sarkis Mazmanian. He's a microbiologist. And they knew that 40 to 90% of children diagnosed with autism have some sort of gastrointestinal complication. He went on to explain that it makes sense that children with brain differences would have stomach trouble because our stomachs are loaded with bacteria and microbes can influence decision making. The way he came at this was they took rats, they took out microbes from their intestinal lining that are considered healthy intestinal flora and microbes. When those microbes were taken out, the rats had repetitive behaviors, they ceased to socialize. When they put those healthy microbes back in, the rats returned to being social and they stopped the repetitive behaviors. So they came to interview me as a mother about my experience with managing autism symptoms through diet interventions. And I did tell them that Wyatt had a lot of gastrointestinal issues as a child, a lot of bloating, an inability to drink whole milk and formula. And I do remember a very distended belly at age 2. And that when we took Wyatt off casein, the protein found in dairy, and gluten, and put him on a GFCF diet, he went from saying maybe 1 word at a time to 3-word sentences. And we have gone further with that. We give him a probiotic every day. And we also produce our own kefir, which my husband and I are taking. It comes from what they call Tibetan mushroom kefir, but it's not a mushroom at all. It's a grain. And we are going to slowly introduce that into Wyatt's diet. But we do find that there is a gut-brain connection. It used to be highly questioned that a lot of parents that were into this so-called, I guess they would call us biomedical, correct?
Right.
That this was quackery. There was no science on this. They're showing that this is science.
There's tons of science now. We just saw recently that Autism Speaks funded the largest grant of its kind to do further research into this.
Okay.
I think it's one of those duh moments if you really stop and think about it. Anytime people say, well, I don't understand with what, the gut-brain connection, that there's no, and I would always say, really, because when you drink a beer, it affects the way your mind thinks. So
yes, of course.
It's not like you're pouring it on your head or injecting it directly into your brain. What you ingest does make a difference with how your thinking process
Of course.
is.
And
we
for
all
a
know,
lot
if
of our
you eat
children.
a bunch of sugar.
Sure, it goes right to your brain. Food coloring.
Yeah, your ability to think the next day is off, right?
And what we've found with Wyatt is that the casein, the protein found in dairy, has a very large effect on his behavior. And from what I understand, the scientific explanation for that is that it sets up opioids in the brain, which the term opium was taken from. Opioids, scientific term. And therefore, he acts spacier when he has dairy.
If you ever want to go to a conference, they have conferences. ARI in particular has conferences that I have been at. I am not as much of a science geek in this area, and I have said that if you go to one of those conferences, be prepared. I've said before, if I see one more peptide of a casein or of gluten, that I will run screaming into traffic. But they show you the peptide that is the base of everything that's in gluten and in casein, and it has one little teeny tiny area of it that separates it from being opium.
Right.
One teeny tiny.
Right.
And you go, oh, okay, well, I can see that if you don't have the ability to digest it in the way other people do, it might have an opiate effect on it. It doesn't take rocket scientists to be able to figure that out. But your entire piece, the entire news piece that was done, in which, Nancy, you are so eloquent always on the news.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
It's just amazing. And you can find that. It is on our Facebook page right now. You can click and watch it and see Wyatt and see you being a wonderful mom.
And we've asked Jerry to come on the show, and she's probably going to be on next week to talk more about Dr. Masmanian's discovery.
Absolutely. Now, continuing on, of course, the measles and vaccines continues to be a hot issue in all of the news.
Yes.
Yesterday, it was in LA Times this morning.
This morning. It was on all the network news last night.
Yes. And yesterday in the New York Times, I thought there was a really interesting article, and the title of it was "A Discredited Vaccine Study Continuing Impact on Public Health." And I clicked on it to read it. I just found it really interesting, and I'm going to start to read from it. In the churning over the refusal of some parents to immunize their children against certain diseases, a venerable Latin phrase may prove useful. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. And it means after this, therefore because of this. In plainer language, event B follows event A, so B must be the direct result of A. It's a classic fallacy in logic. What I thought was interesting was that I want to accuse them of exactly the same thing. I think in this article, they're saying that parents who have refused a vaccine are refusing it because of a study that was done many years ago by Andrew Wakefield. That is, in fact, the reason why, because it happened, the study came out, and then people started refusing the vaccine, that they're saying this happened because of this.
Right.
And yet they're saying to parents, you're assuming that your child got vaccinated and had autism, and these two things happened, but they're not necessarily related. And I want to say the same thing back at them. I know a lot of parents who don't vaccinate, and it doesn't have anything to do with an Andrew Wakefield study.
Exactly.
I don't know why people keep arguing that.
Or Jenny McCarthy.
Or Jenny McCarthy.
A lot of people are blaming her for this.
There's a whole website that's devoted to the reason why people are dying and deaths attributed to Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah, I know.
I have never done anything because Jenny McCarthy said, I don't understand why people are assuming that that's what. So
no, I base decisions on the fact that my son has hyperimmune dysfunction, and that certain toxins and certain things can trigger a reaction in the brain. So I base mine on firm science that has been shown by a test that was given my son.
Well, and for every single time that I'm seeing a report on the news and they'll talk about, my heart is bleeding for all these parents who have immune-compromised children because of leukemia and things like that, and saying, my child's at risk
dysfunction
because all these other parents aren't vaccinating. And then we're only seeing a couple of stories where there are people who, besides them, that have children with autism that have mitochondrial dysfunction that have been told your child is not a candidate for being vaccinated. I did see one interview the other day with a very reputable doctor with Becky Estep, who we've had on the show before, and they were asking the doctor, and the doctor said, well, I have reviewed her child's case, and her child is immune compromised, and is one of the children that should not get a vaccine.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why it's just assumed that autism parents that aren't vaccinating, the automatic assumption is it's because something that a doctor said
that was discredited,
or something
that a mom said on Oprah, being Jenny McCarthy, that we're all following this herd mentality.
That we're a bunch of lemmings.
Right.
That we are the uneducated mass.
Right. because it's just not true.
I just don't get that
So,
at all.
and also the two of the presidential candidates have jumped into the fray, saying Governor Christie has backpedaled from his comment over the weekend that it should be more of a choice for parents. And he was, well, they almost tarred and feathered him for that comment, and he quickly had to backpedal by saying he and his wife had vaccinated and he knows it's important. But wow, the vitriol spewed at him. And then Carly Fiorina has said she thinks it's more of a choice. But I think the amount of coverage that this is receiving too is fueling the us versus them to some degree.
Well, and I don't know if you saw that since we've been on the air, and we don't have confirmation of this, but in the headlines breaking this morning is that the Obama administration has granted immunity to the CDC scientist that was the whistleblower on the fudged vaccine report. So
really,
we'll keep that. This is what the headline is. I don't have
And
corroboration on this.
Okay, so
but
he's been granted immunity from prosecution?
I don't know.
What does that mean?
Well, that he cannot be, I would assume that it means that he cannot be prosecuted for having fudged those results because they were part and parcel. I mean, having agreed that this happened, then he was part and parcel of it and part of the cover-up.
I see.
But that is typical that whistleblowers that come with reputable information are granted immunity from being prosecuted.
Okay.
I assume
and,
that's what
and
it
this,
is, but I can't
the individual we're talking about has basically come out and said that he fudged information on the fact that it was revealed that there would be a greater propensity for African American boys to be to regress into autism following the MMR vaccine.
Right. So
that's it.
Really, really very interesting. We had one more study that we wanted to talk about briefly that found that abandoned children placed in institutions have an increased risk for autism. I found this really interesting because they are even saying that they don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg, whether these children were abandoned because they had tendencies and the parents couldn't deal.
What scares me about this is that it in some ways, I feel like it goes back to that refrigerator mother syndrome, and people are going to go, oh, well, there you go. Children who have autism were not coddled, nurtured, and tended to as infants.
But I do think one of the things that we've realized that can empower us is that if we know that a child is at risk for autism, like siblings, we know that there are things intervention-wise that you wouldn't have done, that no one would have ever occurred to have done. That doesn't make it our fault. But if you do those interventions, that fewer of those children actually do regress into autism than statistically would have.
Yeah.
So if there are things that we can be doing to help all of our kids, but they're not the typical things, it's not our fault that we didn't know. But if we can start to share those things, maybe we can make a difference and have fewer kids regress.
I've often wondered if there's ever been a comprehensive study on adopted children and the rates of autism. Because I've had friends say, and my son is adopted, I've had friends say, well, it just stands to reason that a lot of adopted children would have autism because they would maybe have things in their background, be it lack of prenatal care, folic acid has been shown to be a potential thing. Maybe if there is some genetic, let's say, injury from drug addiction, alcoholism that might occur, that these children are not as well cared for and as well nurtured during a pregnancy, and they're not from homes necessarily that there would be that kind of, I guess, preventative measures shown. I'd love to see a study done, and I don't know if there is one.
No, I don't know either, but we'll check into that. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Susan Campbell Cross is going to join us.
One
and
of
we're
our
going to talk
best
about
friends.
Yes,
Yeah, let's
she's
talk about
wonderful.
some fun, good
she
things.
She helps us to make our lives work in a better way.
Right.
We've got Valentine's Day coming
Yes,
up.
we do.
And for those of us who are lucky enough to be in a relationship with a significant other, that we want to maintain that.
Yes.
And we got kids on the spectrum. Sometimes that can be hard.
It
and she's
can be very challenging.
She's going to help us. She's got tips for how we're going to hack Valentine's Day as special needs parents so we can make it really wonderful. So stick with us.
Hi, I'm Ryan with Autism Research Group. We study ways to improve the lives of kids with autism. One of those ways is teaching safety skills, such as what to do if they get lost. We hit the streets to find out if anybody knows the correct answer on how to teach a kid what to do if they get lost. You're teaching the child.
What to do if they get lost.
Yeah. You're trying to make them
Okay.
independent so they have the skills.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, give them a compass. Code name's good idea. Centurion.
We always have this whistle.
Oh, I'd
Figure it
also
out,
tell
that
the
was
kid. I tell the kid, don't get scared. It's all. You're gonna be all right, man. This is just the world. This is planet Earth. You're at home here. As long as you're on planet Earth, you're at home.
As long as you're on planet Earth, you're home. This guy's a genius. With that flawless logic, he just solved our homeless problem. And as for the unique sounding whistle, although very cool, it'll probably only work if you're in close proximity. And a compass?
I have her call me.
Yeah, she doesn't have a phone. Parents are like, you're too young, you don't need a phone.
Establish some sort of like meeting place.
What if they can't find a meeting place? Because sometimes the kids get nervous when they get lost.
Yeah.
So like a backup plan,
Well,
like plan B.
Yeah, I don't know. No, not really.
Let them go and find a new kid. Or something.
Yeah, I've got a different one. Yeah.
There's not much you can do. 'Cause
There
if
is
you,
stuff
like,
you can do.
like-
That's right, there is stuff you can do. In 2012, myself, along with my colleagues, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox and Dr. Adele Nadowski, published a study in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis on teaching kids what to do when they get lost. The study demonstrated how 3 simple things, rules, role-playing, and praise, were effective in establishing these help-seeking behaviors. The benefit of this method is it doesn't require the child to have a cell phone or to have to locate a meeting place, which might be difficult if they're in a place like Disneyland. So once again, our method included rules, role-playing, and praise. Let's head back outside and learn about some of these rules.
They should yell out loud. Can't find my mom, help me.
Maybe yell out and scream for help.
All right, scream really loud,
Correct.
and if that doesn't work, then,
I don't know.
well, they could seek help from someone.
Find an adult.
Go to a vendor, and say I'm lost.
Find an adult, like a police officer or a fireman or an employee in the store, and tell them, and maybe they can help you contact your parent. It really is that simple. You don't need to get your kid a cell phone. You don't need to establish a meeting place that they might not be able to find when they're lost and panicking. And you definitely don't need to give them a compass. All your kid has to do is 3 things. First, yell mom or dad real loud. 2, if that doesn't work, find an employee. And then 3rd, tell the employee they're lost. If they can't locate an employee, then tell them to find a mother with children, because that's probably the safest person to approach. I'm not saying that most men are predators, but most predators are men. That is a fact. I've read it in a fortune cookie. All right, so you've gone over the rules with your kid, and you've quizzed them, and they're able to tell you the correct responses so they understand the rules. But is that enough? How do you know they're gonna perform correctly in a real world setting? You need to get out there and find out if they can actually do it. So you'd go over the rules and tell them, like, do this, do that, but how would you know if they actually knew what to do? If you wanted to shoot a basketball, and I just told you, oh, when you shoot a basketball, do this, this, and this.
I never practiced.
You never
It's not gonna
practice,
happen.
yeah, so it don't matter how many times we go over the rules or how well you can repeat them back to me. It's not going to change until you get on the court and practice.
Maybe do like a little skit with them.
Like a
Kinda
role play?
Role play, yeah.
Your child, you're lost in the toy aisle.
Okay.
What do you do? I'm an attendant walking around.
I'm lost. I don't know where my mom is.
And then once you practice, you just like praise them, give them feedback, like, good job, you did it.
Reinforcing it.
Yes, this woman wins the prize for best comment. She pointed out the most important part of learning, reinforcement. Now, in our study, we used praise, but for your kid, you might have to use something else. You might have to buy them a treat, a toy, take them to their favorite restaurant where they can eat unhealthy food, and run around and climb through plastic tunnels that have the unmistakable scent of urine, and then play games spending $20 to get a plastic little spider ring that they will eventually lose in a ball pit. The point is, you need to reward your child for correctly demonstrating what you've been teaching them.
Okay, I'm gonna call her. Hello, your child, Ryan is missing. There you go.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So you tested it out
I'll
in the
try.
store to make sure I knew it. I had the rules,
Yes.
we role played it, and you made sure I knew it, and then like you said, good job, and all that. Now we're good to go.
We're good to go.
All right.
Done?
High five right there.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Give your child the rules, get out there and practice, and reward your child for responding correctly. For more information, please visit us online at autismresearchgroup.org. I'm Ryan Bergstrom. Thanks for watching. Yes, Yes, this woman wins the first. Yes, this woman. Yes, this woman wins the best. Yes, this woman wins the first place. Yes, this woman. Why can't I say woman? Yes, this woman wins. What's the line? Yes.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We were so busy talking because there's so much to talk about. We're thrilled that you guys are here with us because we have the wonderful Susan Campbell Cross with us again. We love it when you come because you make our lives better.
I love to come.
Yes.
I feel like girlfriends talk show.
Yes, it is.
It's
It
so
is.
much fun.
It is,
It is.
girlfriends.
It's very fun. And I think it's a wonderful, it's like a palate cleanse. Every once
It
in a while
is.
we need to talk about things that are
Fun things.
life.
Right.
And having fun and connecting.
Yeah.
And you remind us of that and you help us to figure out ways that we can do that.
Living in the moment, laughing, loving ourselves, right?
Yes, and we should say that you have a wonderful book, The Fabulous, that everybody
thank
can
you.
get. It's available on Amazon. It's a wonderful book to be able to help people to understand how important it is to put ourselves on the list.
Right, and that it is not selfish. Selfish
It
is
isn't
not.
selfish.
Yeah, self-care and selfish are not the
Not
same
the same.
thing.
That's
No.
right.
No.
That's right. But you're here today to talk with us about Valentine's Day,
Yes,
and you're
it's
all
coming.
redded out to be here with us.
So tips for even the busiest of parents,
Absolutely.
which is definitely special needs parents and autism parents.
Yeah, I think those are the people that really need to celebrate the most, have the least ability to put it together,
do it.
or at least they feel that way. But I'm here to say, you can do it.
Okay.
So let's
Absolutely.
start.
School
with-
us.
Okay.
Yep. Hack number one.
Hack number one is get real. Okay. Communication is key. I think most fights happen when there's a lack of communication about what the expectations are about holidays, birthdays. Valentine's Day is no different. In fact, it can be actually worse. If you have it in your head that you're going to be, swept off your feet and taken in a horse-drawn carriage, and if you don't say something, that's not going to happen. And the other thing is,
can't
it
read
may
your
not
mind,
be
right?
possible. They can't read your mind. They may be good at lots of things, but they're not psychic.
No.
And, I think that when you, especially if you've got special needs kids, you have to be realistic. I mean, that may not be in the cards. And you may not have the money or the energy or the time or the babysitter or whatever you need. So it's good to have that conversation. We still
can
have
we
over
drop
a
a
week.
little hint like, I love flowers and
Absolutely.
chocolates.
Yeah.
Or I don't want chocolate, I'm on a diet.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Why does it have to be little? I think, the men that I know love it when they get told this is what would make me happy.
Yeah.
My husband really likes it when I go to a store and actually put something on a wish list at the store. A lot of stores will do that for you.
Yeah.
And then you just casually put a little card with the address of the store and say, there might be something there if you're looking for something for me.
I do that too. I'll say to Reed, I really need this, and here's a couple of ideas, and he's pretty good about following through on that.
Oh, he's such a
Can I tell
sweetheart.
you what I've been doing the last couple of years? I take Jem shopping.
Oh, that's
Because we had this exercise a couple of years ago that Jem needed to learn how to remember something and how to keep a secret.
Okay.
So they asked me to do this, and we do this every year now. I take him shopping, and I say, you can tell Daddy to get me this, this, or this. And then it's a job for him to remember it.
Oh,
and then
that's
he goes
good.
back and tells Dad, and in the beginning, I had him take notes on it so that he could go back and have a likelihood of getting it right.
Right.
But it's it's like an
That's
exercise.
good. You
and it
can
works.
involve your child.
I think that's a good idea.
Manipulate them and call it therapy.
Yeah. Okay.
Put those kids to work. Let them earn their keep.
That's right.
Yes. Well, my next tip is you can turn your own home into a love shack because you don't really have to go out. I mean, that's the other thing. This year Valentine's Day does fall on a Saturday, but a lot of times it's like in the middle of the week.
Right.
People have to go to work. People have to get up early to take kids to school. And it's just sometimes just too complicated or too difficult to get out the door. And, sometimes I'd really rather just be at home in my jammies with a glass of wine.
I think a lot of us feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you can absolutely make your own home into a very, romantic and special environment.
Tell us some simple ways to do that.
Okay. Candles.
Okay.
Okay, you can dim the lights. Put the kids to bed early. And if you can't get the kids to bed early, then, in Europe they start dinner at 10 o'clock. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just one night. Stay up a little late. We're tired anyways.
Right.
So,
right.
Let yourself stay up a little
Take
bit
a
later.
Red Bull at 5 o'clock. and-
Exactly.
yeah.
I do that. Not Red Bull because I'm a little worried about the chemicals
but a little,
in that. But
maybe some
I'll
tea.
drink iced tea late in the day if I know that I have
Me
something that I
too.
need to stay
Me
up to
too.
do. And what really is more important than that connection with your partner?
Right.
That's something that we absolutely need to nurture. And it deserves that a little boost, and I think that's fine. So once you do, whether you can get the kids to bed early or if you have to wait until they go to bed, then that's a good time to pull out the candles and the wine. Take a little shower, put some perfume on, put on a special dress. Just because you're not going out doesn't mean that you shouldn't dress up for your partner. And it lets them know that you are, you really value them and that you want to look beautiful
or
for
get
them.
some special pajamas, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or special lingerie. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Yeah, I mean, put a fire in the fireplace, put some music on, and, you can do something wonderful like get dinner, order it, delivered in. You can transfer it. Now, use your good dishes. That's my other, thing is that people save their good china, or we're saving this for some. What are we saving everything for?
Right.
Use the good china. I mean, this is what more special occasion is there than your life and your partner and celebrating your love. That's something that should be good china worthy.
Definitely.
I mean, get out your good plates. And, if you really, for some people now, I know that it can be sometimes really hard to even have an hour or an hour and a half.
Right.
If that's going to make, the whole thing is you don't want to create stress. The whole idea is to do something romantic and nice and lovely that you're going to come away with feeling good about, not stressed over. So if it's going to be too difficult, and for some it might be, dessert. Just wine and dessert. It doesn't have to be a full-on dinner. I mean, it's whatever.
Good
it
point.
really, and there's no rules. I don't know who came up with rules that everything has to be extravagant. And, I mean, my kids are at the age now where they're going to proms and things, and the ask for proms has become like way better than proposals were. Like I'm what are these people going to do when they're adults and they go to ask someone to marry them if they've already done the flyover plane thing for asking someone to prom? I mean, and not everything has to be so elaborate. I mean, keep it simple. I always say, keep it simple, sweetheart, and make it work for you. Whatever is going to work for you.
I like the idea of a
what's
dessert,
right for you.
because
Yeah,
that
dessert is
like wine and dessert. You don't have to make a big dinner and
Even at one, and I'm
light a
watching what I
fire
eat. I mean, one really special Godiva chocolate on a beautiful china plate and a glass of
presentation
wine
is everything.
with the fire and the music and the dimmed lights and the
personally,
candles.
I'd rather have violets or daisies than roses. So
I will let Reed know that. I'm sure he already knows. But that's, I think create that romantic environment
that I can put out in the yard.
Yes, I like plants that are hard to kill. Those are my favorite kinds of
See, and
plants.
I don't want a plant. I'd rather have my husband vacuum.
That's great.
What I want.
Then tell him
that's
you want a
romance to
coupon
me.
book.
Men
need to know
that's romance.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest turn-ons for women. I think is a man who knows how to vacuum.
My husband folds laundry.
Or having,
I'm in the mood.
or having him make the dinner. What I'd love for Valentine's Day is for you to make dinner.
Exactly, or trade back rubs or foot massages, or I mean. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and I think it's going to be unique to each couple. I mean, that's why the communication part is so key, because if you're, there's some book about love languages. If you're speaking, if you're only doing for the other person what you perceive and feel is a loving gesture, but it may not be what they feel like is a loving gesture. Like if you don't like plants and your husband thinks the most romantic thing to do is to give somebody roses, and you don't want roses, then it's not really a loving gesture.
Exactly.
You
It's
need
that
to
perspective
communicate.
taking we're always talking
it
about.
is. Yeah,
it has to be what works for you.
Okay.
Or each other, I guess is what I should say. And on that note, it's really the thought that counts. I mean, honestly, when I think back, and my husband's given me some absolutely gorgeous, I mean, he's really been very generous and kind over the years and given me some beautiful things. But you know what I remember the most? If you ask me what was the most romantic thing, he serenaded me, and it's almost better because he can't sing. He can't sing. So bless his heart, he put himself out there, and he did this was so long ago when we actually had not two pennies to rub together. We were in college, and he came into my sorority meeting, and he brought along a friend who played guitar, and he serenaded me in front of my friends, and it was just like the most romantic thing. And when even over the entire course of our relationship, no piece of jewelry has ever outdone that nervous, shaking, quavery voiced off key.
I know.
Young Kevin with his heart on his sleeve trying to sing a song to me because he wanted to do something romantic. And I think that those kind of things are the things that are the most meaningful. I really do. So I mean, you can do something. I put something together. I want to show you, and I did put this together literally in less than
3 minutes.
Okay.
I went on my computer. I don't know if you can see this,
Beautiful.
but I went onto my computer. I had this frame already because I do think it's good to stock up on things like
Right.
that. If you need it as a hostess gift or something, then you just have it.
Okay.
And this was one of the ones I've picked up, maybe $9 or something.
Okay.
The mat was already in it.
All right.
And I just printed out even on regular printer paper, because if you don't have time to go get actual prints on photo paper, that's fine. It doesn't matter. You can always replace it with the real thing later.
Okay.
But I just printed a photo of us together. I printed it in black and white to
Right.
make it look a little fancy. Our pinkies
Right.
out. And I printed out a poem that was on the program from our wedding. And I mean, it really took no time at all. Now, this little decorative thing here, I took a ceramics class and I made these flowers at ceramics.
Okay.
But you can do anything
And you attach
handmade. You
them.
can
How
just
did you
make
do
a
that?
bow
With, like,
out of
glue?
glue.
With glue. Okay.
Glue. I'm
it
serious. This
stays?
is all stuff that I already had in my
Great.
house.
Okay.
And you know, you can't.
So pretty. That's going to look gorgeous in your house.
I mean,
can
this
see
is
it
the
sitting in
kind
your
of
house.
thing that, you know, I mean, this to me is a nice Valentine's gift
Yes, it's
because it's
beautiful.
personal. It's
Yeah.
personal.
Yes.
And
That's
I
what
put
it's
it
all
together,
about.
even that it didn't take a lot of time.
Well,
It
I'm
didn't really
definitely
take any
stealing
talent.
that.
But you know, it's still, I think
Move
that
over,
Kevin will
Susan.
appreciate
I'm
the thought.
stealing it. I'm hacking it.
Feel free. Feel
Okay.
free. Okay, another good tip is no baby talk. It's so hard when you have kids to put the talk of the kids aside.
You mean
and
no kid talk?
No kid talk.
Oh, you
I
mean
just
like
am
no
joking,
talking,
baby
like,
talk.
hi, baby.
Well, that's
Yes.
allowed. Depending again on your preferences and your communication, and if that's what you both
Yeah,
want.
you
That's fine. I'm all for it.
I love you.
I love you. No, but I'm talking about
kid
talk of the kids.
Especially when you're in our situations, which is, you know, you've got kids in therapy, you've got kids in school situations,
so
and
much to
you're
talk
Easy to fall into that.
IEPs,
Yes, easy to
you
fall
know.
into that because there is
Right.
so much to discuss and so much that needs to be discussed. But for just this little sliver of carved out
try
time,
to
A little
keep you.
hiatus.
yeah, a little hiatus,
We
because
need that.
the celebration
At our
of
house.
you as a couple. I think the stronger
No
your
talking about
relationship
your
as a
illnesses,
couple.
no talking about
Well, I mean,
your...
if you can keep it positive, yeah. I mean,
Right,
if you
but
can focus.
even then, it's just
you know
like-
what's funny is a lot of couples, I think they get to the point where they don't even know where to start a conversation. Then, if they can't talk about the kids and they don't talk about work, and they, you know, it's like, what do we have left to talk about?
Right.
Then you start making out, and that's the whole point of this,
Yeah.
right?
Well, if it's been
There's
a
nothing else to
while,
talk
if it's been a while, that can be
Making
a
out.
little awkward
What's
too.
that?
But you can, but you can't actually even. One little Valentine's gift idea could be making like romantic conversation starter cards.
good idea.
And you can just, like, you know, write out, you know, my favorite thing about you is ... You know, and then you can each take turns answering it. It really actually is eye opening when you find out what. You know, you, even when you're with someone for years and years and years, you may not know that the nape of your neck is their absolute favorite part of your body. Or, I mean, you just don't. I mean, and it really can. It can lead to some really lovely memories to start things like that. Yeah.
Or how about 10 things I love about you and share?
Yes.
That's great.
That's wonderful. I
So
love
you
that
ask him
idea.
to do it and you do it.
Exactly. Or even that could be, you know what, if you found a really pretty, like, journal or notepad or notebook or something, you could glue on a picture of you as a couple and then write that and then spend 15 minutes and then trade books and read out loud what the person
And then
said
you
about
have
me.
a
That's
record
just
of it
so
forever.
nice.
That's wonderful.
Sometimes
Costs
things,
very
you
little.
know, here's something that I find works for me. When Reed and I first met, when I think after our first kiss, he said something like, "I feel like I've been kissed by 10,000 butterflies."
Oh,
so
that's a good quote for a photo frame like that.
He became the butterfly man. So he would sign. I remember once getting a message at my hotel, "Love the butterfly man." He started giving me cards that would be "Love the butterfly man,"
I love it.
and butterfly cards. So that was kind of,
It's a signature thing.
Our signature
It
thing.
is.
So those, and then when he gives me a card with butterflies on it and signs it the Butterfly Man, it reminds me of the innocence in the beginning.
It's an
right?
exactly.
Right.
It's an anchor that brings
It's
you
an
back to that
anchor
moment.
before you get broken by life, you know. And you know, the thing is, we all have our challenges, and it's a testament to any relationship to stay together through the challenges of autism, through, and then all the other life challenges
Cancer
on
and
top of it.
everything else, yes.
So it reminds you of that, a simpler time, and what first brought you together, and that you still have that.
You have that and then some. That's what's so wonderful.
I
It's
know.
like that and then everything that's come since that has made you stronger. and really helped you to see how much you can really count on this
Right.
person.
Right.
And that has to get celebrated. So my
Yeah.
last tip is don't be ruled by the calendar. It doesn't have to always be February 14th. I
Right.
mean, why can't we make this type of date that we just talked about with our partner third Thursday of every month, or
yeah,
I
date
mean, there-
night.
if you
this for
plan
date
it out
night.
a little bit ahead of time, you can make it happen. Especially the little 15-minute ideas, because in 15 minutes you can read to each other a chapter of a
Right.
book. In 15 minutes you can do the foot massage. You can trade what I love about yous. You can. I mean, there's so many things that reconnect you as a couple that actually can happen in a very short time
Right.
frame. And I think that if you only had 15 minutes, fine, then some is better than none. That's true for exercise. That's true for
Yes.
chocolate.
Yes.
That's
True
true
for
for
everything.
romance. It's true for everything.
Yeah, it is.
So I
Some
mean,
is better than none.
and don't not. I mean, I hope there's not really small children watching, but don't discount the quickie. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's really hard to
Right.
reconnect physically, and
No.
I think that if you can even just 10 to 15 minutes in
Yeah.
the morning, whatever you have, do it, because take advantage of those little tiny windows. They still count. And I think it's like exercise, it's cumulative. So a little bit here and there, the effect is the same. You're
Yeah.
still going to have a closer, in fact, maybe even better, because the consistency of little small gestures is better than the once a year big grand gesture.
Absolutely.
Or, okay, now that it's Valentine's Day, now I'll get out the lingerie. No,
Well, that
no.
kind of feels like it's the making up for the lack of it all year. doesn't it,
Exactly. I
sometimes?
mean, it's almost like a consolation. I mean, love
Yeah.
should be celebrated as often as possible and in as many ways as possible. And small is just as good as big. Grand is just, fine too. Dining in, dining out, whether it be, you don't have the money for a gift, so you're going to write from the heart a love letter. I mean, there's so many things. Don't throw Valentine's Day out the window and feel like, okay, well, this holiday is terrible and it just reminds me of all that we can't do.
Yeah.
Don't let that happen.
No.
Don't let life steal
Don't live in lack.
your wonderful moments.
Live in abundance and live from, be in the
Yes.
present, and don't take the past into it. Just decide to start anew with a fresh new start.
Absolutely. Susan,
Okay.
thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for all your
You're so
wonderful
welcome.
tips. Great tips.
Yeah.
I've got ideas running through my head.
I know, me too.
Oh, good.
I hope our viewers do too.
Absolutely. All right. And we want to remind everybody your book, The Fabulist,
Yes.
is available. You can get it on Amazon.
Yes.
Susan Campbell Cross.
And you can follow me on Twitter. If you want to
Okay.
follow me on
All right.
Twitter, I'd love to chat with you.
Okay.
I'm at Susan Cross 1, the number
Okay.
1.
Okay.
All right. Is there a Facebook as well?
Yes, if you look on Facebook, just search the Susan Campbell Cross.
Okay.
Because there's probably hundreds of me. No, I'm just kidding. It just, I don't know why, but it's the Susan Campbell Cross, and you'll find me there.
Okay,
great. We're going to be right back with more of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for military families 10K and 5K run, walk, and family fun festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, you have a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma. Working with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to ACT Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here. Of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor.
What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being ACT Today that does a fantastic job.
ACT Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does Act Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight two battles. One, to protect our country, and another, to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Devil Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff or an email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you're gonna have the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
Sign up for next year because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
Hello, we are back. How nice of Susan. We
It's
got
so
little
sweet.
gifts and,
She's always so thoughtful.
I know.
She
and
walks her talk, I have to say.
She does. And, little things like this that makes a difference
So
for your
meaningful.
husband.
We've only got 1 minute. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to talk about the run.
Run. We have the Act Today for Military Families run in San Diego. You do not have to come to San Diego to participate. You can be a virtual participant. Go on to acttodayformilitaryfamilies.conterra.org. Our goal is to get participants in all of the states, all 50
all
states.
56, yes. It's been that kind of a day.
It's been a long time.
All right.
Since I was in school. But yeah, it's been that kind of a day. But please register. We need your help. Please support. You can go on and you can support a team. We really want to reach this goal. Our military families need the help for their children with autism.
And we're really out of time, but I want you to know that tomorrow on the show, Larry Hauser from Fullerton Cares is going to be here to talk about the Mardi Gras for autism coming up. We also taped an interview with Kelly Hunter from the Hunter Heartbeat Method. This is so great. Shakespeare with kids on the autism spectrum. You're going to love her. Really wonderful. So that's all happening tomorrow. And next week, Deborah L. Smith, she's the Autism Resource Mom, will be on Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy next week. All right, so I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to try not to be a coffin fool tomorrow.
And I'll
Thank
see
you for filling in. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.